but nothing stopped the feast.
Fantastic, thank you. Easter Monday is the biggest gastronomic day in the Greek calendar. It's the celebration of the resurrection of Jesus and the innocence of the Lamb and the innocence of Jesus, which is done here on these spits. But of course it's so important. The rain's open, the heavens open, and absolutely nothing stops us enjoying our lamb. I was in fact going to be cooking at the same time as them, but because they've got to go to Mass and then eat that straight away, we'll sort of get out of this one and carry on our cooking sketch when the weather's a little bit better.
This wasn't a spring shower, it was more like a monsoon. And in fact, by the way, it is Easter Sunday, not Easter Monday, as I said. The water, or was it the wine, must have got to my head.
Well, it has been rain stop play, but it doesn't matter. We can still cook. All you need is heat and food, because that's what cooking is actually all about. In this pot here, I've got some lovely pieces of beef, which I've been frying with finely chopped onion and garlic in olive oil, lots of olive oil, just to brown it, and that's it. And then, because Greece is such a big producer of olives, Steve, if you could wander back this way, it'd be really good. I'd like to speak to my mum, because I promised I'd mention her on this Easter Day programme. This is a very simple dish, utilising simple meat and simple olives. So we chuck a few olives in, like that. Because tomatoes are grown plentifully here, although not at this time of the year, I have to say, these probably come from the Canary Islands, for all I know, you put in loads of tomato. Now, it's quite normal for the dishes in Greece, which are called stefados. They have very rich, thick, relatively dry sauces around them. They're not swimming sauces in wine sauces. They're tomatoes, olives, and olive oil. So we put that on there, and that'll be about 2 hours, although, of course, we'll cheat and make it look as though it's completely cooked in nearly just seconds. Over here, in this pot, I've got some chicken, lightly frying, lightly browned, again with garlic, onions and olive oil. But, Steve, one of the important things that's happened to Mediterranean cooking is the Arab, the Moorish influence. And although this is a Greek dish, it's quite interesting that it uses sultanas, very much an Arab thing, and they go into there. It also uses lemons, very much a Greek and an Arab thing, and they go into there. So we're cooking sweet and sour with fruit here. Very Moorish influence on Greek cooking. Then we add a drop of white wine. And people do say strange things about Greek white wine, like it tastes of retsina or resin. In fact, it doesn't. It tastes more often of turpentine. That one's quite nice. Then we put in some tomato sauce, cold tomato sauce. And to continue the Arabic flavour, we add some cinnamon bark and put a couple of cloves in. So here we have a mélange of the Berbers, of the Arabs, of the Moors, and Greece.
And a soggy hour and a half later...
Now, that should be cooked. You can see how the sauce has really thickened down. Now, there we are. Our chicken with lemons, cinnamon, cloves, white wine, and raisins. And it's a very, very fragrant dish, this is. Very reminiscent of North Africa, the Moors and the Arabs. The beef in tomato sauce and green olives is a rumbustious, strong-flavoured Mediterranean dish. Don't think of just Greece, don't think of just Spain, it's the whole of the Mediterranean.
I've cruised down to Santorini, where the crescent-shaped black and sandy beaches were formed by a massive volcanic eruption some 3,500 years ago. Today, tourists arrive by plane, ferry and cruise ships and negotiate the long haul up the cliff to the town of Fira by cable car or mule. Somehow this feels more authentic and gives you a chance to chat with your fellow travellers as you climb up the 580 steps to the top. Sitting between Greece and Turkey, the island of Thera was conquered by the Venetians in the 13th century and renamed Santorini. As recently as 100 years ago, the island was reputedly infested by vampires, but the most frightening thing here today is the prices charged by the bars and restaurants perched at the edge of the cliffs.
Santorini wines get their characteristic flavour from this arid volcanic ash in which they're grown. Not a problem. Their big problem is wind, and it blows across here like across the Russian steppes. So they devised a very cunning plan, as Baldrick would say. They've woven or trained the vines into a garland so that the grapes fall inside the garland and are protected by the outer leaves from the wind. Another advantage of the garland system is that because there's very little rain on Santorini and they're not allowed to water the vines, because the grapes nestle inside this nest of leaves, any natural humidity that occurs drops into the soil and goes down to their roots.
Nikos runs about the best restaurant on the island, and he has an extensive list of locally produced wines, so we decided to open a bottle or two.
It has a lemony, fruity...
Exactly. That's the main characteristic of the variety of Santorini. But the amazing thing is that the first months into the bottle, you can recognize the lemon taste. The lemon peel, exactly. But after 5 or 6 months, the same wine, it's getting different. You can recognize thyme, honey.
All of the things which
All the things,
Santorini
yes.
has. And the place is covered in thyme with poppies, with honeybees and stuff. And all these flavours, which is where the flavours come from,
Yes,
are
exactly.
in this wine. And that sounds really splendidly pompous. So I can get myself into Sood's Corner or Coleman Balls for talking nonsense about wine, but I'm not. This is absolutely sensational.
Although I could stay all day, it's enough of this slurping. Duty calls.
It's quite a pleasant change. I've been able to borrow a neat little kitchen with a stove and a few gas burners and stuff like that. So I'm going to attempt to cook about a 4 or 5 course, typical but simple Greek meal. The first thing is going to be a little pastry puff of cooked chopped spinach mixed with a beaten egg and cream cheese baked in phyllo pastry. So we pop this into the phyllo pastry over here on the corner, like that. Just to repeat, the spinach has been cooked and chopped and mixed with cream cheese with a beaten egg, good quality cream cheese. A little bit of fresh mint goes inside that. Then quite simply, with hands that were trembling, you just keep making little triangles, tamping it down at the side all the way. Brush each one with some beaten egg yolk and white. Egg the last one, and then sprinkle some crushed sesame seed, possibly more Turkish than Greek, but this is the Mediterranean after all, and into the oven. And of course in another country, like India, they might be known as samosas. If there's one thing which is absolutely synonymous with the Mediterranean, it's octopus. Whether it's charcoal grilled, deep fried, or, as I'm going to cook it, in red wine with onions and tomato sauce. First of all, I chopped up the octopus into little pieces like this, placed them into a totally dry pan, and cooked them so we got the liquid out of the octopus. That was the first thing I did. So it's like that, it's dry, it's not cooked, but it's had all the liquid extracted from it. Over here, I've got me pan of olive oil going. And we just fry that for a second or two. The next thing we do, we add some little baby onions. And stir those around in the olive oil. Then we add a drop of vinegar. Red wine vinegar, white wine vinegar, it doesn't really matter. Then we add some red wine. Like that. Then we add the same tomato sauce as I used before. It's there like that. Then garlic. chopped parsley, bay leaves, crushed peppercorns, a bit of salt, and then the lid goes on and we leave that to simmer for about 40 minutes. Earlier on, I roasted some whole red peppers absolutely dry in a very, very hot oven until they were burnt. I took them out, and when they'd cooled down, I peeled off the skin, took out the pith and the pips, chopped them up in slices like that, and I've spread over a bit of crushed garlic. Then you add a bit of parsley or coriander onto that, then some lemon juice, and then some olive oil, and just leave those to chill for 2 or 3 hours, and I promise you, you get the wonderful burnt flavour of a sweet red pepper, the juiciness of the lemon, and the calming influence of the olive oil. Here, I bought these, but they're very easy to make. They're just chilies and carrots and cauliflower, just steeped in vinegar. It's a very, very Greek thing to have. Octopus with onions, this is a very interesting dish. The octopus is fishy and nice. The onions are vinegary and winey. Our little cheese puffs, if that's not too fine a point to put on it. Cream cheese, spinach, baked in phyllo paste in the oven with sesame seeds. This should be eaten hot, which it still is, and these should be eaten really quite hot. And actually, for those of you who don't like meat, this is a wonderful snack.
Thank you, Greece. I'm off to Turkey now, the home of the once all-powerful Ottoman